Hey, baby, it is the Breemix episode number 3.
Yes, Annabelle, your favorite episode.
It is my favorite episode, absolutely. Annabelle, fact or fiction?
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, last time we talked about incubus and succubus, and we've taken some time off. You had some leadership obligations that you had to attend to, and then last week we celebrated my birthday. And as you know, we live in the middle of nowhere, so if we want to celebrate, we have to go towards Denver. So that takes a full day to kind of drive that direction and drive back. So yeah, but we're back in the saddle again.
Absolutely, and I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I mentioned, we talked about incubus and succubus last time, and if you missed that episode or any of our past episodes, I invite you to check them out. And if you like what you see or hear there, please take a moment to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes of Heavy Theology. Woo! And today we continue to go back in time to our season 1 episodes of the series, and we're revamping them in video format for our YouTube and Spotify video subscribers. Today we're looking at Annabelle the Doll.
Annabelle the Doll.
Yep, and why are we doing this? Because these episodes lay the foundation for everything we discuss on the podcast.
It does.
And why are they the Breemix episodes? Well, because these episodes combine our research and knowledge from the past episodes with brand new research to bring you the very best research and material on the subject matter.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a year more into my doctorate, and I've learned so much more and read so much more.
Yeah.
So much more enlightened, and being able to not just be new to the information, but make connections.
Yeah, and my research abilities have gotten much better.
Oh, yes.
All right, so we will get into that in a moment. But first, we have a brand new live event to tell everyone about. It's coming up August the 28th at 6 p.m. right here at Crow Coffee Lounge in Yuma, Colorado. We're going to do a live Q&A event with Pastor Jamie and Bree, but this one will be recorded for our podcast. So if you'd like to be featured on our podcast, or if you have a question you'd like featured on our podcast, please reach out to us at heavytheology@gmail.com or heavytheology.org. We'd love to have you be our special guest for this very special live and recorded event that is on Friday, August 28th at 6 p.m. here at Crow Coffee Lounge in Yuma, Colorado. Doors open at 5:30 p.m.
Get in at 5:30, get your coffee.
That's exactly right. All right, Annabelle. Fact or fiction? All right, this was by far my favorite episode of season 1, and it's one of my favorite episodes of the series. It's one of our most talked about episodes, so let's remix it up a little bit, shall we? All right, you ready for some research?
I am on the edge of my chair.
All right, well, most of our audience has probably become familiar with Annabelle via a Hollywoodized version of her story. Part of the Conjuring universe, the highest grossing horror movie franchise in cinema history, Annabelle the Demon-Possessed Doll had her very own spin-off trilogy that began in 2014 with Annabelle, followed by Annabelle Creation in 2017, and then Annabelle Comes Home in 2019. Now, the movie's director, James Wan, completely revamped the story to make Annabelle appear more terrifying for viewers, and there were a lot of creative liberties taken in the retelling of the history of the doll. In the movie, Annabelle is a creepy porcelain doll that, let's face it, no parent in their right mind would actually purchase for their child. And it was made by a grieving doll maker in the 1950s who had lost his own daughter. But none of this is legitimate, and neither is most anything else that happens to be in the movie.
Yeah, because Annabelle in and of herself really wasn't terrifying.
All right, for starters, let's talk about the type of doll that Annabelle is. And one might think that she would be an evil-looking character straight from the movies, but you couldn't be more wrong, because in fact, Annabelle is your standard plush Raggedy Ann doll. You remember the Raggedy Ann dolls from the 60s and 70s, you know, the adorable little rag doll with the red yarn hair and the button eyes. She had a cute little sidekick named Raggedy Andy who looked just like her, but only in boy form. And this Annabelle had a whole nother sidekick with her, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit.
Some of us that are older, you know, do remember more than others. I mean, like yourselves, the young ones of the crowd, the babies don't really remember the 60s and 70s.
Well, yeah, this is true. We'll take my word for it. She was super cute, and you can Google it. You can find out exactly what I'm talking about. But that's basically what she is. She's just a rag doll with yarn for hair, and millions of little girls had one. I had one myself. And as I mentioned, she was often accompanied by her little sidekick, Raggedy Andy. Yeah.
And I think it's kind of ingrained in us in all the horror films, even Poltergeist. You know, there's always this creepy porcelain clown doll. You know, so creepy dolls are a thing, I think.
Yeah.
They really are.
Yeah. Well, her harmless and common appearance is part of what made her story so chilling and unsettling when the story first started circulating. She literally could have been any child's toy. Now, we don't know exactly where Annabelle came from originally. We only learn of her in the 1970s when a nursing student in Hartford, Connecticut named Donna received the doll as a gift from her mother for her birthday. Now, Donna's mom had picked the doll up at a secondhand hobby store or antique shop, and I tried to locate the store, but the exact name and address of the store was never publicly disclosed, so I wasn't able to get that information. But nonetheless, Donna took the doll home to the apartment she shared with another student nurse, her friend Angie. Now, right from the start, according to Donna and Angie, they started to notice subtle oddities occurring around the apartment. They noticed the doll would shift positions on its own. For example, it would be found sitting on the couch when they knew that they had left her on the bed. And then once they found her kneeling in a chair, which a rag doll really shouldn't be able to do because she doesn't have any rigidity to her. And then handwritten notes started to appear on paper that they didn't have in the apartment. And what I mean by that is they started finding parchment paper that they didn't own around the apartment. And the parchment paper contained messages like "help us" or "help Lou." Now, Lou was one of the girls' friends, and he visited the apartment quite often, and we'll talk more about him in a few minutes. Then the icing on the cake came when Donna began finding droplets of a red substance on the doll's back and hands. Yeah. Now, you know me, I'm skeptical, and the last thing I would think is that, oh, this is supernatural. I would be thinking, no, okay, somebody's messing with us. But Donna, she automatically thought that something supernatural was happening. And as one does when they don't know any better, Donna found it logical and bright to call a psychic medium to hold a seance and find out what the doll wanted.
Let's talk to dead people. Not a good idea.
So this was Donna's first mistake.
Yes. First amongst many. Yes. Yes.
Among many, this was the first one. So she located a medium, they held a seance, and the actual details here get just a little bit sketchy because I found two different tales. In one telling, the medium told them that before their apartment complex was built, the land was an open field where a 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins had died. Now, this one is really popular because this is the one that's true according to psychic investigators and demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren. In another telling, the medium claimed a 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins had been hit by a car in front of the apartment building before Donna and Angie moved in. Well, either way, according to the medium, Annabelle had died a tragic death, and her spirit lingered in the area of the apartment building and had felt really lonely until the two nursing students moved in. And then she began to feel safe because, get this, she was drawn to their compassionate energy. Now, during the seance, the spirit of Annabelle, or something claiming to be Annabelle, spoke through the medium and asked Donna and Angie for permission to stay with them and live inside the Raggedy Ann doll so she wouldn't be lonely anymore. Now, you'll pull all day long and not pull on my heartstrings enough for me to be able to say, okay, yeah, let this thing live in my house, live with this doll. But Donna and Angie, they let their guard down, and they were thinking, okay, this poor child, alone, frightened, scared, she just doesn't want to be lonely anymore. Sure, move on in. And that was their second mistake. So
but it's a friendly ghost.
It's a friendly ghost. All right, now big reveal here, okay? And it's spoiler alert. Annabelle Higgins never existed.
Oh.
Yeah, researchers and investigators have found no historical records of a young girl named Annabelle Higgins or of any child matching her description having been struck by a car or dying at that location in Hartford, Connecticut. So whatever Donna and Angie had just given permission to move into their lives was not a lonely, scared little girl. And they were about to find that out.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Just don't talk to dead people.
Don't talk to dead people.
You know, my daddy used to say, people who go to heaven don't want to come back, and people who go to hell can't come back. So why don't we just leave it at that?
Leave it at that.
Yeah, yeah.
There's lots of wisdom in that.
Yeah. Now, you remember Lou. Okay. Now, this is the friend who frequented the apartment. One more time, Shane. This was the friend who frequented the apartment and the one who was mentioned on the parchment paper note that read, "Help Lou." Well, not surprisingly, he hated the doll, and he urged the girls to get rid of it, to no avail, because to Donna and Angie, they had taken on a responsibility to take care of Annabelle, and they weren't about to abandon her. In fact, they began including her in their daily routines around the apartment. They'd bring her to the common areas and let her sit on the couch, and then when she'd act out, like when she would move around on her own or move around to the different rooms, or if they'd find red droplets of whatever on her, they'd tend to her and try to comfort her, believing her spirit was simply seeking their attention and affection. So whenever she would act out, they would give her attention and affection like they would a child. So it was only after the doll became violent towards Lou that they realized she wasn't harmless after all. So one night at the apartment, Lou had a terrible night terror in which he had felt like he was being strangled. And then on another night, he had a feeling like his chest was burning, and he discovered claw marks on his chest that lasted for days. Now, only after these two encounters did Donna and Angie decide to consult a priest. And so they reached out to an Episcopal priest named Father Hagen. And as soon as Father Hagen was told about the happenings, he recognized what was going on. But he also recognized his limitations in his ability to help. So he passed the girls on to his superior, Father Cook. Now, Father Cook, too, recognized the events for what they were and instructed the girls to contact Ed and Lorraine Warren. Father Cook had worked with the Warrens on other cases and had a lot of respect for their work. How do you feel about the Warrens?
I think the Warrens were opportunists.
Yeah.
I do. I'm afraid that he has no credentials as a demonologist.
Mm-hmm.
There's no specific study and or accredited education at all. And so I'm skeptical of the Warrens. I think they were opportunists, and and maybe they believed in what they were doing, but whatever they were doing was definitely wrong.
Yeah.
And they claim to have been sanctioned by the Catholic Church, but the Roman Catholic Church, of course, claims no connection with them whatsoever. And yet the Roman Catholic Church would keep something like that quiet for good reasons. Sure. So who knows? I don't know in the end, but I'm very skeptical.
Yeah, I kind of feel about them the same way I feel about psychic mediums, I just think it's wrong to profit off of deliverance like that. But I guess that's a talk for another day.
Yeah, to profit off of delivery, right.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Ed and Lorraine visited the girls' apartment and determined that indeed an inhuman and demonic entity was present. And they concluded that the apartment needed an immediate blessing. So Father Cook performed an Episcopal cleansing of the apartment and recited a very detailed 7-page prayer to purify the space. And he also administered a special blessing to Donna, Angie, Lou, and everybody else who was there to protect them from further spiritual harassment and attachment. And Ed and Lorraine left with Annabelle in tow. They placed her in the back seat of their car. Now, they lived about an hour away from Hartford in a suburb of Bridgeport, Connecticut, called Monroe, Connecticut. And according to Ed's records in the book, The Demonologist, the entity resisted relocation. Okay, so almost immediately they began having issues. The car repeatedly stalled, the power steering failed, the brakes locked up, and they ended up having to take back roads home because they were worried that the car was going to crash. So finally, Ed pulls the car over, opens up his bag, douses the doll with holy water, crosses it, and only then did the car actually start to run the way it was supposed to. The mechanical issues then cleared up. Well, apparently the holy water evaporated because not long after they returned home, Annabelle's antics started again. So at this time, Ed was keeping the doll in his home study, and he claimed that he would see her move around the house the same way the girls had claimed that they had witnessed, she would move around the house. He saw her levitate off of his desk one day. He would find her in rooms that were locked. And then Lorraine said that she would see this black cat come in out of nowhere and just go to wherever she was, wherever Annabelle was, and just stop and just stare at her before running away frightened. So At this point, the Warrens were convinced the doll was too dangerous to leave sitting on a shelf somewhere. So Ed built a special cabinet inside their home basement. And incidentally, their home basement eventually became the famous Warren Occult Museum, where they displayed many of the artifacts from their adventures. Now, Annabelle's new case was made of wooden glass, and it was topped with a wooden cross. And under Annabelle, it had a warning that was inscribed, "Warning, positively do not open." So according to the Warrens, the case acts as a spiritual binding agent, and Catholic priests visit it regularly to bless the room and the case to keep the entity inside. Now, the Warren Occult Museum is gone today. It was shut down in 2019 due to zoning issues because it was in a residential neighborhood after all, so it had to be shut down. But Annabelle remains locked in her case under the care of the New England Society for Psychic Research, or NESPR, and it was originally founded in 1952 by Ed and Lorraine. So over the years, there have been rumors that, Annabelle has escaped her case, but she's not. She remains in case. However, there has been a spooky incident that did occur last year that leaves some wondering if she's still a threat from within her glass enclosure. During the height of their fame in the 70s and 80s and somewhat in the 90s, the Warrens conducted a series of traveling lectures and live presentations in which they traveled to college campuses and convention centers across North America, presenting their cases and sharing some of the audio recordings from their paranormal investigations. And they called this the Devils on the Road Tour. Now later, NESPR began their Devils on the Run tour, and this was a way of keeping Ed and Lorraine's brand and lecture style and case files alive. So it's July 2025, and NESPR is on the road with the Devils on the Run tour, and guess what their main attraction was? Annabelle. Now, before this event, Annabelle had only ever traveled with Ed and Lorraine, or for local NESPR events. Ed and Lorraine had been very strict that Annabelle was too dangerous to be moved, and while they would bring slides and audio tapes and photos and smaller artifacts, they didn't take Annabelle with them on tour. It was only in the 2010s that NESPR started bringing her out for local events at local venues in Monroe, where the Occult Museum was located. So when NESPR launched their long-distance road expeditions like the Devils on the Run tour in honor of Ed and Lorraine, they immediately received backlash because moving Annabelle would have been an indirect violation of the Warrens' long-standing warnings about not moving the doll. So to ease the public backlash, NESPR shifted the narrative and claimed that Ed and Lorraine had always envisioned taking Annabelle on the road. So by and large, before May of 2025, she didn't tour. 2025 was her first major cross-country exhibition tour. And their first stop was in the former West Virginia State Penitentiary in Moundsville, West Virginia. And she continued on without incident for 9 weeks until July 13th, 2025. So the tour stopped for a 3-day event in Gettysburg. And Annabelle's handler and lead paranormal investigator for NESPR, Dan Rivera, commented he was tired and he didn't feel well. He went to his room, and when others were unable to reach him later, they went to his room and found him unresponsive, and unfortunately he could not be revived, and he passed away. He was only 54 years old. Now, of course, the internet went wild with rumors that Annabelle had claimed his life, and there were rumors that the case had been opened and that Dan had touched the doll without being blessed to do so. And there were rumors that the case had been damaged in transit and that the glass was cracked. But according to local authorities and the Adams County Coroner's Office, there were no signs of foul play, no supernatural anomalies, and Dan Rivera had passed away from natural causes. Annabelle was not in his room at the time of his death. And the show went on. NESPR felt the best way to honor Dan's memory was to continue the event, and Annabelle continued on with the Devils on the Run tour. And in fact, the intense news coverage and social media discussions surrounding Dan's death sent ticket sales through the roof, resulting in sold-out shows across the country. But NESPR implemented new protocol. Only Tony Spira, the Warren's son-in-law and director of NESPR, and select senior NESPR staff could handle Annabelle's case. Nobody else could handle her. Physical barriers and security personnel were positioned around the case to prevent others from touching the enclosure or even getting too close to the enclosure. And event hosts opened all presentations by emphasizing safety and ensuring the crowd that Dan Rivera's death was a medical event and not a supernatural one. Because you know that I have to explain all my loved ones' deaths that way too. They died of natural causes, and traveling with a demonic entity had nothing to do with it. Why do people keep asking? So yeah, Annabelle, why don't you give us some heavy theology on that subject?
In the ancient Near East, which would be shortly before the Hebrews, shortly before the nation of Israel was created, it would be Mesopotamia and Ugarit, there was the idea of idolatry. And even in the Old Testament, throughout the time of Israel, idols were made. Idols were made out of stone, gold, wood, what have you. And they would be in an image either of a human or of an animal. And the idea was that the people would call the god down into and possess that particular image. And so the image then would have supernatural powers. And these, of course, gods, lowercase g, were actually demonic entities, right? And so yes, I think that Annabelle could be possessed, an item can be possessed by a particular demonic force. And they can also possess animals as well. As we see in the New Testament, the Gerasene demoniac, Jesus casts the demons into the pigs. It's interesting they use the term help us, because the demonic rarely work individually. They usually work in tandem with a higher or more powerful demon. And so the demon was resistant. So we see that the us and the idea that it was resistant to leave probably indicates that it was a lower form of demon actually possessing the doll, who was under the direction of a higher powered demon. And so wasn't forced to leave, and it took, like Jesus says, prayer and fasting to cast this kind out. So is Annabelle truly possessed? Probably so. Probably so. And it certainly wasn't the spirit of a little girl.
Right.
That's how they masquerade and they get into things. You know, they masquerade as something harmless, like a spirit of a child or so forth. And that's how they gain access to things. And so this has been around since the ancient of times, this idea of calling a demonic force in to possess something. How it got into the doll, I don't know. So maybe there was an exorcism in the past and they invited the demon to leave the person and go into the doll. You know, and it could have been that they trapped it there. So it's entirely possible, and I think it probably had some type of force attached to it. Ed and Lorraine were opportunists and exaggerated things. That doesn't mean that every case they handled was false.
Sure.
And I find it interesting that their museum had to be rezoned because it was in a residential area. Well, if it wasn't a commercial property charging admission,
True.
it may not have had to be rezoned. So it was, and of course they had to make a living at it somehow, and they had to support the household and so forth.
Sure.
So I don't know.
Yeah. So did the entity really need the girl's permission? I mean, it seems like it was already established in the doll.
Yeah, I don't know that it needed the girl's permission, but getting the girl's permission was step one. Small concessions.
They had to let their guard down.
Small concessions. That began to open them up to, or allow them to turn themselves over to influence and authority of the doll, right? I mean, to go on a date, you get the girl to agree to go on a date with you, right? You don't just ask her to marry you right off the bat.
Right.
And so, in contrast, this was an evil or nefarious attempt to gain access to and gain influence over the girl's psyche by making small concessions. So I think that was it actually was a pretty big concession.
Yeah.
To let it stay. Then you're inviting it into your home.
Yeah.
So it didn't need it necessarily, but it definitely was a way in which it gained power and influence over the girls.
Do you believe that there's human spirits out there that are restless and lonely?
I do not. I don't think there's any human spirits at all. Scripture seems to be pretty clear that when you die, your pneumach, your spirit, your soul, your eternal being, either goes to heaven in the throne room to wait for the second coming of Christ to reanimate the body, or it goes to Tartarus to be into the dungeon where the fallen angels have been bound hand and foot and thrown to await a judgment. There's no instance that I can see other than when Saul went to the Witch of Endor and called back Elijah from the dead. And I think that was maybe just a one-off. If it really was Elijah, then God allowed that to happen that one time.
Sure.
There's no more instances of it in the Holy Scriptures.
Sure.
Or in any of the pseudepigrapha or Second Temple demonology. There's no ideas of ghosts.
I gotcha. I gotcha. So Donna and Angie consulted an Episcopal priest first. Roland Doe's family consulted a Lutheran pastor, and then a Catholic priest. How do these differ in their methodology pertaining to exorcism? Is that a loaded question or what?
That's good stuff. Well, Episcopal, of course, is the United States version of the Anglican Church, the Church of England. So we start there. Let's go back to the Anglican Church. The Anglican Church was part of the English Reformation. And Joseph Cranmer and several others brought the Church of England into a Reformation and broke away from the Roman Catholic Church. And they adopted or kept what was good about the Roman Catholic Church, and then they adopted the best of what was taken from the Reformation, from Luther and Calvin, and the good ideas that were taken from there. So it claims to be, in and of itself, the Anglican Church or the Episcopal Church, whichever word you want to use, claims to be anti-Nicene. In other words, they come from the earliest church fathers. So by anti, it's A-N-T-E, not A-N-T-I, and it's Latin, it means before. So anti-Nicene is actually before the Council of Nicaea. So the very, very earliest of the church fathers is the tradition that the Anglican Church claims to hold to. The very first tradition, the apostles of the apostles. So in that tradition, of course, they did not adopt the Sethite view, which we talked about in other episodes. They had which is what Thomas Aquinas adopted, which is what the Roman Catholic Church adopts, and so we'll go there later. But they had adopted the Watcher view, the Enochian tradition and the Jubilean tradition, and so I think that the Anglican Church very much understands what these are, and so their process would be much like the Second Temple process, because your anti-Nicene Church fathers were following a demonology as taught by Second Temple Jews. That would be to appeal to God to come down and have the power to remove them. It's a battle for space, not a battle for an individual person. They want to possess the earth, and they want to possess the people in it. So it's not so much about stealing a soul as it is about possessing something that belongs to God, the person itself. It's space. So the Lutherans, I've not had a whole lot of support from the Lutheran denomination. They tend to buy into more of the Sethite view, that in Genesis 6:1-4, the sons of God represents the descendants of Seth. That idea hadn't existed in the church history anywhere until 200 years after Jesus' death, the 3rd century. So up until then, and continuing on in a particular line, but all the way back to ancient Judaism, they understood that Genesis 6:1-4, the sons of God, was referring to fallen angels, right? So the Roman Catholics would adopt the Sethite view, and they would understand, as did the Lutherans, and they would understand that this is just a fallen angel that rebelled against God when Lucifer was expelled from heaven. Don't know why, don't know when, don't know how. Just somewhere along the way, Lucifer rebelled, and he took a third of the angels with him. But the Enochian and Jubilean view explain that. They explain that very well, that when God created Adam, he created him in Imago Dei, which is the image of God. And Michael was commanded to take Adam before Lucifer, who was the head of the seraphs, those who stood around the throne and worshiped God, and have them bow to the image of God. Lucifer refused, and he convinced a third of the seraph to not bow to Adam as well. For that, they were cast down to earth. Then, of course, Lucifer becomes Mastema, which is the son of iniquity. Someone who harbors iniquity is what Mastema means, and gets cast out of the Garden of Eden. So that goes on to say. So I think that the Roman Catholics and the Lutherans had really no power over it. And Ed and Lorraine, you see that they were Roman Catholic as well. And so they splash the thing with holy water, and it stops. I don't know that the holy water really had an effect on it. The demonic are very tricky, and they're liars. So they will pretend as if they're gone, or they've abandoned it, or they have no power, but they'll really be hiding and wait.
And obviously it was.
And that's not uncommon amongst the demonic. So you'll see a demon who'll pretend to leave, and then the person becomes what we would think would be repossessed. Well, they weren't actually repossessed. He just never really left in the first place. Right? Because they're liars.
Right.
And so that does that kind of sum up the difference between the three?
It does. Yeah. I think
so let me summarize that. The Anglicans then would use the Second Temple prayers to God, asking God, and technique, asking God to come in and send his archangels to remove the demon. The Roman Catholics and the Lutherans then would approach it as commanding it in the name of Jesus to leave, which is what we have in modern day today,
Sure.
as if a human had any authority
Sure.
over a demonic force.
I gotcha.
God has the authority. And so in the Second Temple Judaistic teaching, they understand that the very first step of an exorcism is to remind the demonic just how powerful God is, and to try to discourage them from messing with God's people.
Sure.
Because there'll be consequences.
Sure. I gotcha. Good deal. Well, what do you think about the glass case that they have her in? Is it doing anything at all?
So I'm glad you asked.
Okay.
So this goes into Second Temple Judaism as well. It's the paper
really?
I'm currently writing in the Maskell. The Jews would write the Torah on the doorpost, because the Shema, the Jewish Shema, the Confession of Faith, asked them to write these words. The Lord your God is one. Write these words on your doorpost and keep them on the frontlets of your eyes and so forth. And so the idea was that the amulets that they wore in Second Temple Judaism, and the plaques and the prayer bowls that they had to ward off demons, they weren't really originally attributing divinity to those items. It was the words on them. So the idea is the demonic would come in, they would see the words of Psalm 91 or Psalm 119 and remember how powerful God is, and it would discourage them or cast them away from messing with God's elect, reminding them of the consequences of their treachery. And so my guess is that she was probably not the glass case that caused it, but she was surrounded with prayers.
Oh, gotcha.
And it was the words that would try to not keep it at bay perfectly, but discourage it from coming out. Because we remember that there's consequences, and, and God is all powerful. Yeah. So I don't think the glass case in and of itself had any power, but the prayers they probably put around it or carved into the case itself probably did.
I gotcha.
So then the Second Temple Jews were accused of being like the Amorites because they were wearing amulets, right, and all these things, and they were started to give divine power to those things, which is idolatry and, of the Amorites, idolatry.
Yeah.
And so they had to stop doing such things. But there are thousands and thousands of these prayer bowls that have been found in and a time the round of Babylon. And there's probably thousands of more to be found. They're buried in modern day Babylon. Iran. So clearly we cannot go and excavate them right now. But hopefully at some point we can get into Iran and they'll be excavated.
Yeah.
But there's been thousands of these prayer bowls found, so it's very, very likely, it was very valid that these things were used.
Wow. Good deal. Good deal. Much better episode on Annabelle than the first one. We
More
have
information,
vastly improved, haven't we?
I wanted to visit with you one more thing. Is this weekend I'm preaching about Jesus walking on the water.
Oh yeah.
And in one of the gospel accounts, when Jesus walks on the water, and it might be this one, I can't remember offhand, they say it's a ghost. They thought it was a ghost. And so one may think in a modern English translation that they think that it's the spirit of a dead person.
Sure.
That's not what they would have believed.
Right.
They would have believed it's a ghost, and ghost in the New Testament era, in the New Testament period, was a minor demon.
Oh, really?
So when it says they thought it was a ghost, yes, that modern English term means disembodied spirit of a human.
Right.
But in the New Testament period, that's not what it meant. It was a minor entity, a minor demonic entity.
Oh, wow.
A jinn, so to speak.
Wow. Yeah. I had no idea. That's interesting.
So when you go to church this weekend,
there you go. Are you ready for a reality check?
I am absolutely ready for a reality check.
Okay, so I'll be honest with you. I don't know about Annabelle. There is a doll that we did discuss in our previous Annabelle episode. I will not say his name, nor will you. That one I do believe. That one frightens me very much so. In our previous episode, we had talked about him a little bit, and I think you had said something a little bit derogatory towards him, and I laughed and I said his name and said, we're just kidding. Well, when I went to edit, that was at a time when I was doing our editing before Shane over at Hive and Pulpit came along. I was doing the editing, and after I had said that, I could hear something on the audio, and I ran it back, and when I had said,
just kidding.
Yeah, it had said, I'll allow it this time. And it scared me to death. It scared me to death, and I ran it back for him. He could hear it. Gabby could hear it. I mean, it scared me really, really bad. And I ended up deleting that and pushed that episode on. I was pushed the episode on, and then I had horrible nightmares that night. So that one scares me for sure. And so I won't speak about that one. I won't speak about him because I do believe that he's real. As far as Annabelle goes, I'm not sure about that.
It's possible.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible, but
we
also
couldn't say 100%.
No, and with Ed and Lorraine Warren, it causes me just a little bit of pause, just because they're involved with it. So I definitely think it's possible. I don't know that she is. I think the other one is. If you, The other one's in Key West, Florida. Look him up if you're interested.
And if she wasn't before, by them, validating it, they may have invited something to come into it, and so it may be now. It may not have been previously, but is now. Sure. Who knows? But.
Yeah. All right.
Don't talk to dead people.
Don't talk to dead people. Yeah.
Especially if it comes to you through a doll.
Yeah. Or anyway.
Just anyway.
However they come to you. Just don't talk.
Don't read horoscopes.
Yeah.
Don't fortune tell.
Yeah. Do you know that was our most popular episode, was the horoscope
horoscope
episode?
one? Wow.
That was our most popular episode.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? All right, well, next week we're talking about divination and mediums. It's another really great episode.
Absolutely.
It'd be nice to Breemix it up.
Don't talk to dead people.
Just don't talk to dead people. All right. Well, thank you so much to Trent and Jackie for allowing us to use their beautiful facility here at Crow Coffee Lounge in Yuma, Colorado. Thank you to Shane over at Hive and Pulpit for his excellent editing abilities. We'll do it again next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.